Hello, I'm Cindy Daly, a staff attorney at Regional Housing Legal Services. Thanks for tuning into our series on funding resources for affordable housing and community development work. We've prepared 7 short videos that you can watch whenever you have a few minutes. They run roughly 5 to 10 minutes in length. At the end of each video, there's a web address where you can access the slides. Regional Housing is a nonprofit law firm that focuses on affordable housing, community, and economic development, utility matters, and the preservation of home ownership and affordable rentals. RHLS provides innovative project and policy solutions that help create sustainable communities, offering decent, safe, and affordable homes for lower-income Pennsylvanians. These videos are meant to be an introduction and overview of each funding source. The information is pretty general. Each program has detailed guidelines. The videos are designed for people with limited housing development experience who want to know more about how to create affordable homes. We're focusing on resources for affordable housing development. We will not be covering programs for tenants, home buyers, or homeowners, and we're just covering the major and most commonly used programs. So again, this is just an overview. If you have a development project in mind and want more information, get in touch with us. Contact information is at the end of the video, and we'll connect you with one of our attorneys. And I need to be clear that this video is not providing legal advice. We're providing information that is accurate as of early November 2024, but is subject to change. Check with the administering agencies for updated and complete regulations. Links are provided in the presentation. In this video, I'm going to talk about the Home Investment Partnerships Program, commonly known as HOME. HOME was created by the National Affordable Housing Act and is administered by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. It's a block grant dedicated exclusively to increasing the supply of affordable homes. The funds are distributed to local jurisdictions according to a formula that takes into account poverty, the age and condition of the rental housing stock, and the cost of construction. Home funds may be used for the construction, rehab, and acquisition of affordable homes. The money may also be used for demolition if it's related to the creation of affordable housing. Non-construction uses include rental assistance, security deposits, and housing counseling. The funds are also available for building the capacity of special community organizations to take on housing development and management. More on that later. The local jurisdictions that receive home dollars from HUD are called participating jurisdictions, or PJs. The formula I mentioned a minute ago is used to determine how much money each PJ gets over a minimum threshold. PJs include states, central cities in metropolitan areas, any metropolitan city with a population of 50,000 or more, counties with populations of at least 200,000, excluding the population of PJ cities, and consortia of neighboring jurisdictions. PJs must provide a 25% match of non-federal funds or in-kind contributions in order to utilize home funds. In Pennsylvania, the state's allocation goes to the Department of Community and Economic Development. DCED sends some of the home funds to the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency for rental projects of 24 units or more. The portion DCED administers directly is made available to local non-PJ governments on a competitive basis. PJs that get their own funds from HUD may also apply to DCED, but only for CHODO set-aside projects, which I'll discuss in a minute, or if their direct allocation from HUD is less than $500,000. And PJs must contribute $1,000 of their own home funds for each unit assisted. Participating jurisdictions may use the funds themselves to carry out programs, or they may subcontract with other public agencies, for-profit developers, or nonprofit organizations, including CHODOs. I'll describe CHODOs starting on the next slide, but first, note the DCED does not carry out any programs on its own. The agency only subcontracts. CHODO stands for Community Housing Development Organization. CHODOs are a subset of nonprofit organizations that meet certain statutory criteria. The organization must be a 501c3 or C4 nonprofit, organized at least in part to work on affordable housing, and have a history of serving the community it's proposing to work in. At least 1/3 of the board must be low-income individuals, residents of low-income communities, or elected representatives of organizations serving low-income areas. And there must be a formal process for low-income community input. The organization may be sponsored or created by a for-profit entity, but only if the for-profit's main business is not real estate development or management. The for-profit does not appoint more than 1/3 of the CHODO's board. The officers and employees of the for-profit are not officers or employees of the CHODO, and the CHODO is free to contract with any vendor it chooses. The CHODO may be created by a government entity, but only if the government does not appoint or control more than 1/3 of the board, and not more than 1/3 of the board is made up of public officials or employees of a governmental entity. In addition, the CHODO must have a demonstrated capacity for carrying out home projects. To show capacity, the organization must have paid staff with development experience, although in the first year of funding, hiring a consultant to train the organization's staff can fill this requirement. CHODOs must document that the organization will own, develop, or sponsor the project, as those terms are defined in HUD's regulations. In May of this year, HUD issued proposed regulations that would change some of the requirements for qualifying as a CHODO. To meet the low-income representation requirement, the proposed regulation would allow neighborhood organizations to designate rather than elect representatives, and would allow individuals from nonprofit housing or service organizations working in the neighborhood to fill that role. For a CHODO that was created by a government entity, the proposed rule would limit the restriction on board membership by government officials or employees to those from the entity that created the CHODO. The proposed rule also makes it easier for a CHODO to demonstrate capacity by allowing the organization to count volunteer work by board members or officers. However, a volunteer's time would not count if they're being paid or their time is donated by another entity, such as their employer. I want to emphasize that these changes are only proposed. We do not know when final regulations will be issued or what they will look like. Why is so much attention paid to qualifying as a CHODO? Because participating jurisdictions must set aside at least 15% of their allocations for CHODO projects that other applicants don't qualify for. Up to 10% of the set-aside may be used for pre-development costs, including site control. An additional 5% of the PJ's allocation may be used for CHODO operating expenses. For fiscal year 2024, Congress appropriated $1.25 billion in home funds, but that's $250 million less than the previous 2 years. Pennsylvania received a little over $53 million, with $34.5 million going to participating jurisdictions and $18.6 million to DCED. Fiscal year 2025 began on October 1st, but Congress has not yet approved a budget for the current year, only a short-term continuing resolution to keep the government running while a budget is negotiated. You can have a voice in how your community's home money is spent. Every participating jurisdiction must submit to HUD a consolidated plan, generally referred to as the CON plan. The CON plan says how the jurisdiction will use its home funds, as well as funding from 2 other federal programs, Community Development Block Grants and Emergency Solutions Grants. Federal law requires planners to seek citizen input through public meetings and comments. Check your city's or county's website to find the con plan for your area. DCED also does a con plan that's statewide, and they seek stakeholder input as well. If you want more information about home, you can download these slides at www.rhls.org/PA funding report. Another good resource is the National Low-Income Housing Coalition. On their website, you can find the Advocates Guide with information about almost all the federal housing programs, as well as information on the federal budget. Well, thanks for listening. I hope you found this video useful. If you want more information, contact us at 215-572-7300 or go to www.rhls.org. See you next time.